So there's all this talk about President Joe Biden being this deeply devout Catholic. But have you ever stopped to wonder, what does it actually mean? What kind of Catholic is our president really? Well, let's jump into the video and find out. Hey, thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. I pray you guys are just having an awesome day. And by the way, if you guys have never subscribed to my channel, man, I'd love for you guys to hit that subscribe button so that you can get future notices of videos just like this. Hit that like button as well. And I welcome any comments that you guys have about this video. I just encourage you guys to watch it from start to finish, because if you do disagree with me, I want to make sure that you guys got the totality of my argument. I think oftentimes people can listen a little bit, and then the moment that somebody says something they disagree with, they just go off after them and attack them. And with all this disunity and all this hatred, I just pray that people out there, that we just be respectful of one another. So I appreciate that, you guys, very, very much. Now, with that being said, Biden, and I know this will be controversial for some people, is our 46th president. Okay. He's been inaugurated. He's now residing in the White House. And guess what? He is also our second Catholic president. Remember, the first was John F. Kennedy when he became president in 1961. And one of the things when you look at Biden's campaign, and even as he became president, one of the things that's front and center in his life is his faith. If you go back to like his campaign stuff, was battle for the soul of the nation. It was like evangelism, him going out there and saving souls, and is very religious. Matter of fact, there's a quote that, and again, this is something he has said off and on, even in his inauguration. Notice he says here, a calling to serve. This is about his administration. This is what he was going to do as president. He's going to serve people, not to be served. If you notice, that's actually what Jesus says in Matthew 20:28. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. He goes on to say, a calling toward justice and healing and hope, not of hate, to speak the good news and followed by some good deeds. It's not just enough to speak the good news, but to do good deeds. That's language, you guys, from the Bible. As Christians, we're like to be that good Samaritan. We're not just to say we care for people. We are to help them in need. We're to love God and we're to love others. We're to love our neighbor. And this is language. And this is why I want to put out this video, because this is very interesting. What's going on here? Because in the cancel culture that we live in, and especially coming from the standpoint of progressives, you're not to speak about your faith. That is a totally private thing because it's a personal thing according to them. Therefore, you're to shut up. But yet when it comes to the media that advances cancel culture against anybody who runs contrary to their particular belief system, and all these big time progressive politician people, man, they love talking about Biden. They love talking about how he's a deeply devout Catholic. Even Pelosi publicly praises Biden, if you've noticed, and willingly admits how his Catholic faith, remember, she's supposedly a Catholic as well, but how Biden's Catholic faith has shaped his career and his public policies. So when you and I are in the culture war over abortion and same-sex marriage and transgenderism, and you happen to be a religious person who is a conservative, who's for pro-life, who is for biblical marriage, you're not going to get the same treatment that Biden's getting. If you go against what the Supreme Court did in legalizing same-sex marriage in 2015, you're not going to get the response. You're going to get the complete opposite response. You're going to be canceled. And I've been on the receiving end. I have a lot of colleagues and friends who have in so many ways. In social media, some of our books have been pulled from big bookstores. I mean, you name it, because if it's something that runs contrary, you guys, to their ideological positioning, boom, you're done. If you remember, this happened to then Professor Amy Coney Barrett for the first round. She eventually, in the second round, after Justice Ginsburg passed away, and of course, she's now the justice appointed by Trump. But at the time, Senator Dianne Feinstein, in recognizing that Amy Coney Barrett is a deeply devout Catholic, they didn't say that. They said this: the dogma lives loudly within you, Amy, and that's of concern. It kind of sounds like Yoda, right? Looking at a Jedi and seeing the hatred in them. Notice, they don't say that your religion's a concern. They don't say your faith is a concern. They don't even say your Catholic faith is a concern. Your dogma. So she's a dogmatist because she's pro-life, but Biden isn't. He's a man who loves and cares the people. So it's strange because, you guys, as I was saying earlier, a progressive's fundamental objection to public faith is grounded on their ideological beliefs of separation of church and state. That's what they believe. Now, I wrote a book called The Raging War of Ideas, and I talk about that and dismantle that false doctrine about separation of church and state. But that's what they believe. Your faith is personal, therefore it's meant to be exercised in private. But it's okay for Biden to talk about his faith, and it's not okay for Amy Coney Barrett. It's not okay for you. It's not okay for me. And I always just find it ironic, though, that the media, and the progressive elites, that they don't disparage Biden from talking about his faith. As a matter of fact, they love it. It fits their narrative. And you wonder, why does it fit their narrative? It fits their narrative because of this very reason.
Joe Biden is running on the most progressive policy platform in American history.
So the bottom line is Biden is as much of a progressive as he's a Catholic. I call him Pro-Joe, Progressive Joe. He is a progressive Catholic. And if you don't believe me, listen to what he said in his own book, Promises to Keep on Life and Politics. He writes, quote, this is from the horse's mouth, you guys. I'm as much a Catholic, a cultural Catholic that is, as I'm a theological Catholic. My idea of self, of family, of community, of the wider world comes straight from my religion. It's not so much the Bible, the Beatitudes, the Ten Commandments, the sacraments, or the prayers I learned. It's the culture. See, as long as Biden advances progressive policies by advocating for same-sex marriage, for abortion, for LGBT special rights, the Progressive Party guys, they're not going to shut him up. They're not going to have any problem with their faith. Matter of fact, again, it works to their favor because they're speaking to the religious person, and we're seeing that a lot of religious people are actually becoming more progressive. Matter of fact, do you guys realize that over half of the registered Catholics in America voted for Biden? That's astonishing, you guys. This is causing great tension. I mean, check this video out.
6 decades later, Biden put Pope Francis's picture in campaign videos and the Oval Office.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
Yet what was a moment of triumph for Catholics in 1960 is now one of tension.
He's becoming president at a time, though, when Catholics disagree about what it means to be a good Catholic. And it figures largely on the question of abortion, which is a question that John F. Kennedy didn't have to deal with.
Okay, so it makes sense as to why the media then, they don't silence him because he is a progressive. But here's a deeper question. How is Biden able to justify his progressive views and his policies while being this deeply devout Catholic? Because it's no surprise, you guys, when you look at Catholic doctrine, his views on abortion, same-sex marriage, and transgenderism absolutely contradicts the non-negotiable doctrines of the Catholic faith. Absolutely. And like I said, half of the Catholics voted for this guy. So the issue here with abortion, you guys, is a major, major thing. We cannot downplay this. And just because you're pro-life doesn't mean that you don't care about the homeless and the people who are being marginalized. You want to talk about the most marginalized group of people? Are babies who don't have a voice, who are growing in their mother's womb, which should be the safest place, and they're being ripped apart. Now, Biden, as a Catholic, based on his faith, you guys, and based also on science and from his own words, life does begin at conception. He even posted an op-ed on Christian Post, where I also write articles for. He says, my Catholic faith drilled into me a core truth that every person on earth is equal in rights and dignity because we are all beloved children of God. So the bottom line is, Biden believes that every human being has intrinsic value. He recognizes that the unborn are human beings. Therefore, guess what? He believes that all unborn babies have intrinsic value. But notice, it's his progressivism that overrides his Catholicism. That's what you guys, we have to understand. We have to understand that this progressivism that we're seeing with this Catholic president is going to continue to get worse. Check this video out.
Catholic nominee Joe Biden supports abortion in contrast to Catholic teaching. The Catechism of the Catholic Church explains, quote, they are guilty of scandal who establish laws or social structures leading to the decline of morals, which would extend to those who publicly support the killing of the unborn. Joe Biden also supports same-sex marriage. In June 2015, when the Supreme Court ruled same-sex marriage was legal nationwide, then Vice President Joe Biden said in a statement, quote, we couldn't be prouder. All marriages at their root are defined by unconditional love. And in 2016, he officiated the wedding of two same-sex former White House staffers. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops says since marriage originated from God, then, quote, neither church nor state can alter the basic meaning and structure of marriage.
Of course, unless you're a progressive Catholic, right? Because President Biden clearly knows that the Bible does affirm that God created sexual intimacy to be experienced and expressed solely and the marriage between a man and a woman for life. That's one of their sacraments. That's one of their sacraments. He knows that our physical embodiment is God's original and perfect design for each person on earth. He knows that. But he supports same-sex marriage. He supports advancing the legislation of a thing called the Equality Act. And the Equality Act, you guys look it up later, will eviscerate religious freedoms. But I thought he was a religious guy. Why is he silencing religion if he's a devout Catholic? This will increase, you guys, based on the Equality Act, will increase the power of the government to regulate and to go after churches, Catholic churches, Christian churches, Protestant churches, synagogues, mosques that don't support same-sex marriage. How is that being a deeply devout Catholic? And then finally, transgenderism. You know, if you look at the executive order that's called Preventing and Combating Discrimination on the Basis of Gender Identity or Sexual Orientation, when you look at this executive order, guys, it gained status from the Supreme Court decision in Bostock versus Clayton County, which the majority of the justices, they rendered the word sex from Title VII, pulling from the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to include sexual orientation and gender identity. That is a complete, not just interpreting, but rendering. So what's going to happen now, based on this executive order, the next steps of preventing discrimination, what it's going to do is it's going to empower the federal government once again to take affirmative steps to ensure that these special rights now that are given to LGBT people is secured. Now, to be clear, because this is so important when we're talking about discrimination, we know that discrimination and abuse and violence is morally wrong. But when it comes to addressing gender identity and sexual orientation, these are sensitive issues. These are human beings that we're talking about. And so it could be very confusing. But I refer you guys to a good friend of mine wrote Holy Sexuality in the Gospel, a great book. My buddy, Christopher Yuan, used to be a guy who lived a gay lifestyle for many, many years. I also talk about these issues of transgenderism and homosexuality and same-sex marriage in one of my chapters, Chapter 7, in Challenging Conversations. So I encourage you guys, because I don't have time to dig into this kind of stuff, but check those things out, because we have to know about these things. We have to care about people, because we are made in the image of God. So when we're talking about the LGBT community and people's sexuality or whatever gender they identify, we care about that person. Their story matters, because they matter to God, because they're made in the image of God. We all need to be loved. We all need to be respected. But ultimately, we need a savior, not progressive Catholicism, not the government. The government just can't come in there and regulate and tell us how to live, what we should believe and what we should not believe. But here's the thing, you guys. You want to talk about discrimination? It's actually President Biden, this progressive Catholic, and his policies that are discriminating against millions of Christians and Catholics who believe that in the right of the unborn to live. He's discriminating against people who uphold to biblical marriage between a man and a woman. So if you oppose a man and a man, or a woman or whatever, fill in the blank, you're being discriminatory according to Biden. According to Biden's executive orders, if you and I don't accept transgenderism, if you and I do not promote men who identify as women, okay, if we don't promote their right to play in women's sports, you're being a bigot. If you don't support their right to go into a bathroom or a locker room and change in front of your wife and your daughter, you are a bigot. But I have news to progressives, to Biden himself. Biology, my friend, is not bigotry. Not promoting transgender ideology or endorsing sex reassignment surgery does not mean you hate the trans community. It's like my good friend Frank Turk likes to point out all the time. Do you have to approve of everything a person does in order to love them? Because if you do, then that contradicts love that is defined in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. I think that's well said. So you want to talk about discrimination? Biden's executive order forces healthcare providers, hospitals, to perform sex reassignment surgeries, as well as strip women of their civil rights by allowing men who identify as women to invade their privacy. You know, President Biden loves talking about how he was educated and raised by nuns. He loves nuns. But guess what? Biden's get this, Biden's own progressive policies will force little sisters of the poor to fund abortions when they're pro-life. My friends, that is discriminatory. The government should not be able to force policies that undermines the religious conscience, the religious convictions, and the religious beliefs of Americans. So that, my friends, is Biden's true religion. He is a progressive Catholic. He is, my friend, a person that we need to be praying for. So I encourage you guys, while he's president, pray for him. Pray that he will not undermine true religion in America, and pray that he will repent and that he would get right with God. So I, again, appreciate you guys for watching this video. I hope that informs you guys on these issues. And until next time, keep standing strong, my friends.